one ever truly finishes building a pedal board. It's kind of just this lifelong thing that you're always building and tweaking and making adjustments to. But due to popular demand, I'd like to show you where mine is at right now. The idea with this pedal board is to cover a wide variety of sounds without being too overwhelming. I've got octave and fuzz and filter and synth and a preamp and compression and modulation and a tuner right at the end where it belongs. More on that later. But I think what I've ended up with is a pedal board that'll do more or less anything that I need it to and won't intimidate any guitar players by being too big. We're going to be using this bass today because this is the one that goes to most of my gigs. You know it, you love it. It's the Sarek Armitage with G&L L2500 electronics. It's great. Watch the video about it if you're curious. So to start, we're not going to start at the beginning of the chain. Let's actually start with the two pedals that I have that are just always on. Firstly, the VT bass from Tech 21. This is acting as my preamp, and for the past 15 years or so, this has been my favorite pedal. Now you can argue over whether that sounds like Ampeg or not, but I think it sounds awesome regardless, and I love that I can dial that in to be ultra warm for more R&B stuff, or dial it in really clanky for rock stuff. The other pedal on here that is always on is the SpectraComp from TC Electronic, and it is a compressor. I mean, it's fine. I don't hate it, but I think it makes a lot of promises that it can't keep, and it just sort of embodies the Internet of Shit thing. I feel like both of these pedals deserve their own dedicated videos for very opposite reasons, so keep an eye out for those. Alright, so now we're going to start at the beginning of the signal chain, where my bass goes directly into the MXR Vintage Bass Octave. Allegedly, this is a clone of Yannick Giswalda's specific OC2, and that is a fact that we both now know, I guess. I don't know. I had an OC3 on here before this, and I thought that this was going to be like an upgrade, and I literally cannot tell the difference. They all sound the same to me. It's the OC2 thing where you just have the octave 1 all the way up and your dry signal all the way off. Kind of gives you like that synth basis. I think by itself, it sounds not all that interesting, like it's fine. Where it gets really saucy is where you start stacking it with the next pedal in my chain. The Pork and Pickle from Way Huge is my fuzz of choice at the moment. It's a fantastic sounding Russian fuzz, has a clean blend, and it has an overdrive side to it if you want. I haven't found a setting that works great for both the distortion and the fuzz, so most of the time I just use it on my fuzz. And for my rock and pop stuff, it doesn't get used a lot by itself. A lot of its use was with the octave, but I do get a lot of use out of it when I do my rock gigs. Next up, we're coming back down and going into the MXR Bass envelope filter, and this is just your typical quacky sort of thing. It sounds like this. I wouldn't say that I'm married to this pedal. I feel like finding the right envelope filter is probably the hardest part of being a bass player, because these pedals tend to be really finicky. I find myself like adjusting the sensitivity knob all night long, and because of where I have this in the signal chain after the fuzz and the octave, they both behave differently going into it. It's a whole thing, but I like the sounds that I get out of it, so I'm willing to deal with a little bit of that finickiness. Ooh, this next pedal is a fun one. This is the Digitech Bass Synth Wah. There's a couple of sounds in here you might recognize from a certain Daft Punk album. But yeah, this pedal does a lot of really cool things, a lot of really goofy things, and a couple of bad things. a pretty bad envelope filter, but it's a pretty fun synth pedal, and I also kind of consider this pedal a little bit of a flex. Not because it's worth a lot more than when I bought it, but because this position in my pedal board, I frequently will swap this pedal out for something like, something like this if I just want to have a dedicated overdrive, because this one sounds really good and nothing on my pedal board sounds like this. Like this overdrive doesn't sound like the dark glass thing at all. So for my rock gigs, I'll sometimes swap this pedal out for something like this. This is the point where we get to the VT bass and then into the Spectra comp, and then we go into the Colleen multi-mod. Is this the best chorus, flanger, phaser, vibrato, tremolo, pitch shifter ever? No, but getting all of those in one pedal for under $100 is pretty good. And it has a mix knob, which I like. Anyway, for the most part, I am just leaving it on the chorus because that is far and away the most common kind of modulation you see on bass. But occasionally I like to flick it over to the flanger because this one gets really, really wild, especially when you stack it with some of the other stuff, like especially with this fuzz. And finally, we arrive at the Korg Pitch Black tuner here at the end. And I know that this is a controversial spot to put a tuner, but it has its upsides. The thing that I love most about this tuner is the display. I cannot stand the way the Boss chromatic tuner looks. I just don't love that. It's tiny. I think it's hard to read. This is much better, and it's bright enough that you can see it in broad daylight. Now you might think that this is the end, but wait, there's more! Because tucked around on the side of the pedal board here is my DIMon. This makes it so I can run a cable both to my pedal board and to front of house from my pedal board, or just use my pedal board by itself without an amp, which I have done on many occasions. This also allows me to record straight out of my board and then send the amp DI to front of house. So I've got a lot of flexibility with this setup. The DIMon thing was one of those features that really sold me on this board, but the reason why I bought it was actually because on the other side here, we've got this Chox power supply that I actually won in an Instagram giveaway, which never happens to me, but that's how they got me. They gave me the power supply. I figured, you know, the board looks cool. I might as well buy into this whole system. And here we are. This is the Temple Audio Duo 17, I believe. Before this, I literally had a plank of wood that I'd rescued from the dumpster, spray painted black, and put a couple of strips of Velcro on it, and then stuffed all of that into a thrift store suitcase. I kind of miss my DIY setup sometimes because it was just so easy to swap stuff out with the Velcro on it. The Temple Audio mounting system are these plates that have these 4 pegs that fit into the pegboard, and then you have a thumb screw that you mount it down to. But while I think that this is a pretty slick mounting solution, I think that if you are still in the discovery stage where you're trying out lots of different pedals and switching stuff in and out all the time, that this is not a good option, because once you put one of these plates on here, it is a giant pain in the butt to take it back off and reuse the plate on something else. But if your pedal board is in more of a finalized state like I am here with mine, I've basically been using the same setup for, 3 years now with very little changes, then this is a great system. It's really clean, the mounting is really secure, it's really good, but it is a giant pain in the butt if you want to, swap pedals in and out and you don't want to go overboard with these plates. But yeah, that's my pedal board. It does a little bit of everything. I can use it with or without an amp. I can record directly off of it if I want. And yeah, the bag that it comes in has enough space to store all of my cables and a power strip, my in-ear monitors, and a guitar stand, and what looks to be your mom's number. I should give her a call.